One thing I'm really excited about with the new Department of Government Efficiency, actually there's not just one thing, there's three things. Two of them I think are imminently doable. The third one is sort of a pie in the sky, but I'll get to the third one at the end of the video. The first one has to do with pennies. I think it's about time that we realize that the United States no longer needs the penny coin or the 1 cent coin. It costs more to produce it than its face value. And whenever that happens, people in the Treasury Department or the US Mint or whoever is in charge of making these coins should say, hang on a minute, this is no longer cost effective. There are 240 billion pennies that exist. They're not all in circulation, and as you might guess, most of them are in jars or cans in your home because they're hardly ever used in commerce. This works out to about 720 pennies per person. Now you might be thinking that that's not too much money, and you're right, it's not too much money, but it's a lot of pennies. It's time to get the pennies out of circulation. They no longer serve any kind of useful purpose. Like I said, pennies cost about 3 cents each to make, and the United States produces about 30 million pennies every year, which works out to about, if you do the math, if I'm right, it works out to about $900,000 a year just making pennies, a coin that very few people use and that most people consider a nuisance. So I hope the Department of Government Efficiency will take this information, look at the cost effectiveness of producing pennies, and decide it's no longer worth it. Most people think pennies are made of copper, but they're not. Up until about 1857, 1860, pennies were made of 100% copper. But pennies were also relatively worth a lot more money back then than they are now. 1 cent bought a lot of stuff. Now they're made out of 2% or 2.5% copper, and the rest is zinc. So even though the metal content has been changed to reduce production costs, pennies cost 3 times more to produce than their face value. Okay, this next one I've talked about before. Daylight saving time has got to go. There's no reason anywhere in the continental United States where they should be using daylight saving time. For you guys in the back, that's every state except Alaska and Hawaii. It no longer achieves any of the goals we hoped for when we first instituted it. It doesn't save energy. When we first instituted daylight saving time, a lot of institutional energy was used for lighting. This was back in World War I. Lighting is no longer a major consumer of electricity. Plus, our energy needs now with daylight saving time have actually gone up because of heating and air conditioning costs. It also doesn't give people more recreational time after work, so to speak, or after school. The days where we were concerned about saving lighting energy and increasing daylight for recreation, those days are over. It's time to retire daylight saving time once and for all. The problem with talking about daylight saving time, though, is that as soon as anybody brings up changing it or eliminating it, you have a whole bunch of people that jump in and argue one side or the other. These people have not thought about this at all. They just like to chime in. Now, adding to the problem with getting rid of daylight saving time now in 2025 is the fact that Donald Trump suggested it. So naturally, there's an entire group of people are going to be against it just for that reason, without really thinking about the reasons why it might make sense to get rid of it. I'm not against it because it doesn't serve any of the purposes we thought it would. I'm against it because it's stupid. It's just dumb. It doesn't make any sense to do it anymore, and it's about time we woke up and realized that. Unfortunately, what I think is going to happen with daylight saving time is it's going to go into that same category of shopping carts. If you drive into a city and you find shopping carts all over the place, it's an indication that the people in that town are incapable of governing themselves. If you can't put a shopping cart away, how are you going to govern yourself? If you can't see the reasoning behind eliminating daylight saving time, how are we going to make any progress as a country? You guys in the back, think about that. It's time to retire daylight saving time. It was useful at one point. It's not useful anymore. The third thing I think the Department of Government Efficiency should tackle is the U.S. tax system. It's archaic. And there's been an idea on the table for a number of years now. I forget exactly when it was first introduced. I want to say somewhere around 2002, maybe. It's probably before then. But it's called a fair tax. If you don't know what the fair tax is, I'm not going to describe it now, but I will get to it in a later video. But look it up. It's actually very interesting. If we implemented the fair tax in the United States, not only would it make things a lot more efficient, but it would also cost a lot less money than people are paying in taxes now. And I know you're wondering, Bill, how could that be? Well, look it up and we'll talk about it again later.